So I'm delighted to say that joining me on the Godcast today is Chris Hughes. Now, Chris is a hypnotist, a hypnotherapist, a speaker, and entertainer. He is particularly known for attempting to set a world record for the biggest online hypnosis event, and we'll talk about that a little later. Chris, it's a real pleasure to welcome you to the Godcast. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me on.
Whereabouts are you today? Where did we catch up from?
Well, I'm in Oxfordshire, near Banbury, yeah, I'm in my man cave, I suppose is the best word for it. It's where it's all happening at the moment, as we can't go anywhere much. But
I've interviewed quite a few people from down your neck of the woods. I suppose the first question I've got is have you been up north? Have you been to Burnley? Have you been to Lancashire?
Yeah, I've got friends in Manchester. That's about as north as I go.
Okay.
I've been to Glasgow, so that's even north, further up north, I suppose. But no, not
No, okay.
not really that area. No, not that much.
Okay. Great. Well, we're here to talk about hypnotherapy. So let's get cracking. Chris, what was it that aroused your interest in hypnotherapy? Where did it begin?
Well, I think it started with me actually thinking it was a load of rubbish. If I'm honest, I went to university. We had people coming, and we had the typical stage hypnotist who would turn up and make everybody in the student union do crazy stuff. And to be honest, I kind of just thought it was, I just thought the people I knew involved were just messing around, and they were just playing up to the audience and all that sort of stuff. But I kind of had it in my head that at some point I was going to look into it, to actually spend some time and try and work out for myself whether it was real or whether it was just completely fake. And I tracked down a local hypnotist through somebody I knew who'd done some stuff with him, and he ended up sticking my hand to my face. So I'm kind of stuck. I can't get my hand off my face, and I just found it fascinating. I was like, how does this work? How can I actually do this? So I started, I suppose, learning it, and effectively doing just trying to learn the basics.
What is it, Chris? What is hypnosis?
Well, hypnosis doesn't exist.
Okay.
There's no such thing as hypnosis, not really, not as a thing. You can't put electrodes on somebody's head and see how much hypnosis they're doing, right? And I certainly can't stand up in court and say, sorry, Your Honor, but I only robbed the bank because my mate hypnotized me and told me to do it, right? But what there is a state of suggestibility. There is a state of mind where your subconscious becomes open to suggestion, i.e. positive suggestion. When you're in that state where your mind is open to suggestion, if you take somebody who's in that state and tell them that they are the best ballerina in the world ever, because it doesn't go against their own morals, values, or beliefs, they're probably going to accept that suggestion. And the next thing they know, they're dancing around, really not really understanding why they do it, but other than it feels right to do it because they've accepted the suggestion, right? So it's all about suggestion. It's about suggestibility.
So when you go back a little bit, and you said you had your hand stuck to your face, what's going through your mind when your hand stuck to your face? Is anything other than...
So my subconscious is saying, your hand stuck to your face, and I'm saying, well, I want to take my hand off, and my subconscious is going, well, no, you can't because it's stuck to your face. And there's this internal argument. You're trying to do something that your subconscious is telling you can't do, and if you focus enough, you can then take it off your face. But for a couple of moments, for probably half a minute, it's that kind of feeling that you can't do it. It's very strange. It's one of those things where unless you've actually done it yourself, you probably wouldn't believe it. And that's the amazing thing about it, really.
I suppose most of us have been there where we saw the old Paul McKenna TV show and they line them up. And so when somebody puts the thumb on the forehead or something and says sleep, what's happening at that point to the person?
Okay, so what actually happens is we use the word sleep because, quite frankly, sleep is probably the best word that we can use. We haven't seen nobody's really found a word that works better. But we also tell people that although we're going to use the word sleep, we don't actually want you to go to sleep. We use the word sleep because your subconscious mind understands the idea of sleep, right? Understands that your eyes are going to close and you're going to go into a nice, relaxed place. So when you see people on stage say that word sleep, what they're actually doing is they're invoking a suggestion that's been given to them prior to probably the show. If it's a full show, you'll actually see that suggestion being given at the beginning. He will say, from now on, every time I say the word sleep, your eyes will close, your heavy head will drop forward, and you'll go into a lovely, relaxed place. And that's the suggestion. And then, of course, for the entire show, anytime they want to put them back into this relaxing place, they just say the word and they carry out the suggestion that they were given at the beginning of the show. If you've ever seen things like Darren Brown on TV, for example, there'll be moments where he'll say the word sleep and they'll go under. But what you don't see on that sort of show is you don't see the bit at the beginning where they did the induction and they got them into the state, gave them the suggestion.
Okay, got you. So when you saw this show and you became interested, what were you did you have just a regular job at this point? What were you up to?
Well, I was a studio engineer. I worked in studios. I recorded bands. That's what I did. I studied as a sound engineer. And I just found it was just too tiring. I mean, literally, bands don't go to bed till 4 o'clock in the morning, right? No. And it's all right when you're young, and because you kind of live in a recording studio, and the band lives there, and they have breakfast there, and they have dinner there, and it's a huge part of your life. But obviously, to do it forever, I couldn't really do it forever. So as I said, I kind of fell into it.
Yeah, were you working with some decent bands, decent musicians?
Yeah. I mean, lots of Hurricane Number One, Andy Bell from Oasis, all that sort of stuff I did in the early days, as an engineer. But as I said, it just became too much, and then after I'd started practicing a bit more in the sort of the hypnosis world, I had this young lad who used to come around and mow my grass, and I basically one day said to him, "Do you fancy doing a bit of relaxation?" I didn't want to say the word hypnosis because he might scare us. So, "Do you want to do a bit of relaxation?" And I started to just start to learn to hypnotize an individual. And I remember the first thing I ever did was stick his hand to his leg, and he couldn't get his hand off his leg, and he was laughing his head off, thinking it was so funny. And then, of course, he then said to me, "Do you think you can stop me smoking?" So I immediately found some appropriate stuff to say for stopping smoking. Not at the level I do it now, but kind of just basic ideas that are required to stop smoking. And he stopped smoking. He just stopped. And then, of course, he then told all his friends, and then all his friends wanted to have a go, and it kind of just grew from there, really.
And you went to America, is that right, to learn more, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I learned from a guy called Jerry Kine, who was he sort of sits on the board of the National Guild of Hypnotists in the States. See, in the States, it's a little bit, the whole thing's a bit different in the States. In the States, they do try and push the boundaries of what we can do, and they're always sort of trying new things. For example, a stage hypnotist in the States will turn up at at high school. High school will have a disco. They'll invite a stage hypnotist along, and he'll have all the kids up on stage, believing they're in a horse race and doing all this fun stuff using their imagination. Whereas over here, it's all just kind of like, "Oh, we couldn't do that." It's scary stuff. Where actually the reality is it's not really scary at all. I mean, it's just me talking to somebody. I mean, that's essentially what it is. You are talking to somebody with their eyes closed. I mean,
but is it a skill? Could anybody just go and do it then?
Anybody can learn it. Anybody can learn it, whether you've got the right aptitude, the right amount of confidence to do it. confidence comes with actually doing it, I suppose.
Mm.
I remember the very first time I ever hypnotized anybody. I still remember it to this day. It's like the most scariest thing ever, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know whether it's going to work, or what happens if it doesn't. And
Mm.
but as I said, anybody can learn it. It's not like something you're born with.
Yeah, that was a little bit scary what you said about them going into schools and things. Is there a code of conduct then for the world of hypnotists? Then is there a standard that you all are expected to work to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a member of something called the General Hypnotherapy Register. That's why I'm a senior member, because I've been doing it for so long. Apparently, that's the reason. That's the only reason, apparently. And they have like continuing sort of learning as part of it. You have to do a certain amount of extra sort of continuing training stuff. So they have a set of standards. They have a set of rules. And all the standard stuff, really. You want to make sure you've got an up-to-date DBS check, and you've got all the other sort of bits to make you safe, and things like liability insurance and all that sort of stuff. Because I mean, ultimately, you are just talking to somebody, but you have to sort of be mindful that you're talking about people who've got issues, and they've got troubles, and you have a responsibility to ensure that an adult is, or a young person is, just treated in a certain way and respected, and confidentiality and all that sort of stuff. So we all work to a set of rules.
I was trying to find some parallels between the job I do and the job you do, which isn't easy, but I was thinking about this, and sometimes people do come to see me who, may say that they feel possessed by demons and whatnot, and then there's a call on my behalf about what happens next, and quite often it would be me suggesting a referral to a medic, a professional. Does that happen with you, Chris? Do you find yourself in places where you think this is not something that I should be dealing with? This is something different to that.
Yeah, I have a rule: is if you're not comfortable with it, refer it out. Refer it to somebody who is comfortable with it. I mean, it's interesting what you say about, especially the position you're in, for example, that your subconscious mind is kind of set up to only accept negative suggestion. So if somebody says something negative about you, whether it's true or whether it's false, your subconscious mind will accept it as being completely true. In a lot of cases, if you've ever heard somebody saying something horrible about you, you will then spend 2 days arguing with yourself about why what they said was completely not true, because your subconscious has accepted it as being true and is now making you feel bad about what they said, but even though what they said wasn't true in the first place. This is why things like social media are so dangerous, because you've only got to read a few things on social media, and then you'll end up feeling bad about it, even though what that person said is completely not true. So the issue is in order to change in a positive way, we need to be able to accept positive suggestion, and we can't do that. It's a bit like when somebody, say your best friend's got a problem, you can sit down with your best problem, your best friend, you can sit down with them, you can tell them all the things they need to do to make their life better, and they'll go, yeah, and then they'll do absolutely none of it, because it's all positive. It's all a positive change. Somebody who wants to lose weight, for example, I don't need to tell them what to do to lose weight. They know all the things they should be doing to lose weight, but because they're all positive, they can't do them, right? And this is the problem. But what happens is people who are seen as like in a kind of a superior position, people like police officers, dentists, even people like vicars, people who go to church, for example. I mean, I go to church, I don't go as much as I should, but I do. But the point is, you look up to that person who's talking to you, and your subconscious does as well. And your subconscious has this, it's almost like you have the ability to actually get positive suggestions into these people because of the position you're in. Classic example: a friend of mine was a smoker. he went to the dentist. His dentist told him that if you don't stop smoking, you're going to lose your back teeth. And he stopped that day. No if, no buts, no having a go, no thinking about it, just did it. Because that person is seen as an authoritative position. Police officers, people like that. So you actually, in the position you're in, you have almost a higher level of influence over people who look up to you than maybe their own family members, because the way you're seen.
That does sit quite heavy sometimes, because sometimes I'm the type of person that I just have to tell them as it is, and sometimes that can give them the answer they didn't want to hear. Sometimes they want to be affirmed that they're being possessed, or and things such like that. Chris, just on that subject, I'm just thinking about myself. Really, I'm the kind of person that if 100 people tell me something, 99 people tell me I'm wonderful, which doesn't happen, but if 99 people do, and one person tells me I'm rubbish, what is it in my mind that's making me dwell on that? Because that's
all the people telling you you're great are trying to give you a positive suggestion, right? You can't accept positive suggestions, so just accept that. That's how it is. That's life, right? You can turn around to your other half and you can tell them they're wonderful and they're beautiful, but they're not going to accept any of it. None of it. It's just not going to happen. And of course, your subconscious will only accept the negative stuff. And even if somebody said, hey, you're the worst vicar in the world, or whatever it is they want to say, just that one comment, even though you know that you're probably the best vicar in the world, it doesn't matter. It will bounce around in your head for days, and it will drive you nuts, and you will find yourself having conversations with yourself about why they're an idiot and they don't know what they're talking about and how they don't understand and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. And that's this is my issue with talk therapy. In not initially, if somebody needs help, get them talking to somebody straight away. But if you look at people who have been sort of doing talk therapy for 6 years, it's the same stuff. The issue isn't that they don't know what it is they need to do. The issue is they can't accept the ideas they need to accept to make the change. And that's the point where, they should be looking at, stuff like hypnotherapy. It's the same thing. It's quite simple. You get somebody into a suggestible state, you give them a positive suggestion, they accept it, and suddenly everything feels different. It's not magic. It's just what it is. It's no different to telling somebody that they are the best ballerina in the world ever. It's no different.
Chris, what would your take be on something like Myers-Briggs? In a previous world, I was in middle management for Argos, and I always felt that people were trying to mold my management style to enhance my performance. And this Myers-Briggs model landed, and then lo and behold, when I was training to be a priest, it landed again. And it didn't really offer any great deal of surprises. Do you think these kind of models of, I don't know whether it's psychology or what it is, do you think they're actually helpful or not?
I think the biggest fundamental thing you need is rapport. If you can generate good rapport with somebody within the first minute of talking to somebody, then you will achieve more than any course. Rapport is everything. Somebody's subconscious mind will make a decision as to whether they like you in seconds. I mean, it literally is, you open your mouth, you say a few words, already you've made a decision as to whether you like me, right? Subconsciously, you've done that. You did that within about a minute of us talking, right? Because we all get this feeling, you get this feeling when you meet somebody and it just doesn't feel right. And when we talk about that gut feeling is just your subconscious giving you a feeling about what it is you're doing. And most of the time your subconscious is pretty good at working things out well before you have a chance to to come up with your own opinion on it.
Is that different from your instinct, Chris? Is your instinct different?
It's the same thing. I think it's because instinct is a feeling, right? It's the same thing. It's your subconscious going, oh, I don't like this. This doesn't feel right, and it gives you a feeling. People talk about the gut feeling in your stomach. It's just a feeling, isn't it? You know, and most of the time, if you trust your gut, you know, if you see a deal that looks too damn good to be true, and your gut's saying, no, it's just wrong, it's, you know, and your brain's going, yeah, but it looks completely genuine, and I think I should pay them loads of money, you know, and it turns out to be a total con.
What's your gut instinct about our relationship 17 minutes into the interview? Is it positive, or is it kind of
we're like this, you know, we're already like this, you know. No, it's great, you know. I mean, as I said, I have a good feeling about everything, and especially this is great. It's great. I like to talk about, you know, especially, you know, hypnotherapy, what it is and what it isn't really, you know, because I think it is probably one of the most underutilized things we have. It's not hypnosis. Hypnosis is a thing, as I said, doesn't really exist. Hypnosis comes from the Greek word of hypno, which means sleep. Nobody goes to sleep. They do go to sleep. You have to kick the chair really, really hard. That's the only way you can deal with that sort of thing.
Yeah. I was wondering when I was preparing for this about how Christians would feel about hypnosis, but there doesn't seem to be, you know, normally I actually think that hypnosis would be a great thesis for a master's in studying theology, because there's very little. In fact, I could hardly find anything. I think there was a couple of bits in the Old Testament about hypnosis.
I did ask my vicar, actually. I asked my vicar probably 10 years ago. I said, do you know of anything in the Bible about hypnosis? And he said, no, I don't think there's anything.
No, and so I think it's quite an interesting idea. You know, I mean, I suppose we're kind of talking about things like, you know, we're encouraged to meditate and to pray and things like this, and to be at peace with ourselves and things like that. But I was wondering if I could ask you, Chris, about, I mean, we get some characters, some wonderful characters at church, some who've got very colourful pasts, who are currently gripped by addiction. So that would be either drugs or alcohol or whatever. I was wondering how an approach to healing them would begin. Would it be to quell the addiction, or would it be to kind of deal with the issues that got to the addiction? How does it work?
Well, I mean, there's two types. There's addiction, which is physical. So a physical addiction is very difficult to break without some sort of medical substitute. You know, stuff like heroin. You know, you can't just, it doesn't matter how much suggestion you give somebody, you cannot tell somebody just to not do it anymore, because their body is what's, you know, it's this huge physical, you know, craving that's actually doing it. You can certainly give somebody the confidence and the belief that they can do it. You know, you can get them fired up to do it. You know, you can give them a few techniques to really get themselves ready for that. But you see, other drugs, like, you know, things like cocaine, for example, isn't really the same. It's more of just a habit. It's normally connected with another behavior. So stuff like that, yes, most certainly. But yeah, it's a difficult one. You know, things like drink, for example. For most people, it's not a physical thing really. It's more of just a habit. It's a getting back from work, having a bottle of wine habit, you know, or always having a bottle of gin and always having a glass of gin at 8 o'clock. You know, these are just habits.
Yeah.
So I suppose, you know, confidence is the key, and yeah, I mean, you can certainly help people, especially by getting them to understand the effect it's having on other people first. You know, a lot of people don't realize, you know, smokers, for example, who have children, when you point out to them that actually, you know, you want to be around to watch your kids grow up. You want to see them have kids, get married. Yeah. You want to be that 70-year-old grandmother sat on a rocking chair, right? This is what you want to do, right? And they go, yeah. And you say, but every time you're putting that cigarette in your mouth, you are gambling with the fact that you might not be there for your children anymore. And you won't be there to give them your wisdom as a parent, because, you know, because you're taking this risk on a daily basis of getting cancer, getting emphysema, you know, and a light bulb kind of goes off in their head because they kind of think, you know, and I always say, you know, when you're a teenager and you've got no responsibilities, you know, you do what you want. And quite frankly, if you smoke and you end up dying from cancer, your mum and dad and your friends will miss you. But ultimately your impact on the people who are dependent on you is pretty minimum. You know, there aren't really anybody, you know, as soon as you have kids, then it's a different thing altogether. You know, it's it's just a slight different way of looking at it, you know.
Mm.
You know, and that goes for anything else, goes for things like, you know, cocaine and stuff like that. It's the same thing.
Is there an area that you have a greater success rate with, Chris? You know, so is one habit easier to deal with than another, or
Smoking's easy. Smoking is not an addiction to nicotine. This is a false thing that's sold into us as far as I'm concerned. It's just a reason for Nicorette products to be sold. You know, I have never had anybody say, "Oh my goodness, Chris, I've been sticking these patches on now for 3 years and I just can't stop doing it. Please help me." Because nobody's ever been addicted to Nicorette patches, right? Nobody's ever really been addicted to Nicorette gum. You know, oh my goodness, I can't stop chewing it. I chew it every day. I just can't stop anymore. That doesn't happen. Never happens.
yeah,
See, people are addicted to the fact that your subconscious mind is very clever. When you do something over and over again, it says, "Do you know what? I can make it so you never have to worry about forgetting to do that again." Right? I will make sure you never forget it. And of course, a smoker gets up in the morning and they go, "Well, today's the day. Today's the day I'm never going to have a cigarette again." And their subconscious goes, "What do you think you're doing?" And you go, "Oh no, I'm not going to have a cigarette." And it gets to 10 o'clock in the morning and it's going, "Well, hang on a minute, what's going on? You know, we normally have a cigarette at 9 o'clock. Now it's 10 o'clock. I'm not very happy about this." And it'll just keep going at you continuously all day until eventually you just can't take it anymore. You just say, "Forget it. I'm just gonna have a cigarette. I'm just gonna have a cigarette." And you have the cigarette, and then you go, "I've just ruined it."
mm,
You know, I managed to make it all day, and I've just had a cigarette. I've totally blown it. You know, and it's because your subconscious is saying this is the behavior that we do, and if you don't do that behavior, it will make you miserable until you do. You know, and that's the only reason people smoke,
yeah,
not because of anything else. You know, if you can go to bed for 8 hours and not have a cigarette, it's got nothing to do with nicotine.
yeah. It's
You know,
fascinating stuff. Can I ask Chris if you have ever had, or if you ever have people come and ask about faith? You know, kind of people who've have been maybe devout or given their life to particular religion, and then they've had a crisis or something, and that faith has gone. Is that something you would deal with in your work?
it's not anything I've really come across. You know, I've known people who have had trouble with their faith, and they've spent time with their local parishioner, you know, a parishioner or a vicar or somebody, you know, and they talk it through. You know, it's not something I suppose that I would probably get involved in because I don't think I'd be the right person. I think in that sort of case, that's your world, right? That's what you're good at, yeah. You know, you know the things to say, you know, and ultimately it comes down to what I said about people being seen as almost superior in a sort of a, you know, a subconscious way. You
Mm,
know, what you say, especially to your parishioners, is accepted, you know, as almost, you know, 100% truth. And you know, that's where the suggestion side comes into it. You know, you can give people positive suggestions and actually they will accept them. You know, you're one of the people who can do that.
mm,
You know, other than people like, as I said, doctors or anybody who's seen in a authoritative you know, position can give positive suggestions. So you know, you've got a certain amount of really good power that you can actually change people in a really good way. You know, and that's something that you should, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. You know, it's a
um,
good thing.
I was asking my kids a few questions, and my wife's actually a nurse, and she said you must ask him how you feel the relationship is between you and the medical profession. I'm not aware. I should have asked her, but I didn't. But could you? Would a doctor refer you to a hypnotist or not? Is that not
the problem? The problem we have is currently the hospital trusts will not put any money into hypnotherapy at all. They'll quite happily put multiple sessions of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. They're quite happy to refer somebody for 20 sessions of that. But what tends to happen is, in a lot of cases, people will do 20 sessions of that sort of stuff and feel that they're not really getting anywhere. And then they end up coming privately and just paying, for sessions with hypnotherapists. Because as I said, it comes down to how much you really want to, talking about something and learning how to cope with it is great, but it doesn't actually fix the problem.
No.
And I agree that, being able to cope with your feelings is good. But it's not ideal. It's not what you want to do. What you actually want to do is not have the feelings in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, it really is. It's fascinating stuff. I'm sure people watching.
But it's funny because I sliced my thumb open last weekend and I had a load of stitches. Look, it's really cool. And while I was having the stitches, of course, the doctors come in and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And of course, as soon as I said I was a hypnotist, they just question, and the doctor who was stitching me up was saying, "Yeah, we had this hypnotist come when we were at university, and it was amazing." And we know a bit about it, but I've always been really fascinated. So a lot of them are really fascinated in it. There are little things that nurses especially could do better. For example, there's something called a rule of the mind. One of the main rules of the mind is something called mental expectancy. So what you expect to happen is normally realized. Okay, we've all had a bad hand, and then somebody touches it, and you go, "Ow! Don't do that." Well, actually, the reality is it probably didn't hurt at all, but you expected it to hurt. Therefore, you still react like it would hurt, even though it probably didn't. So, mental expectancy is very important. So, if you're going to give somebody an injection, right? Instead of saying you're probably going to feel a sharp scratch, the suggestion you're giving this person is feel a sharp scratch, right? So as soon as you say that, instantly they're going, right, where's the I'm waiting for the sharp scratch, and immediately you've put them on edge instantly. Whereas actually, if you just said roll your arm up, you might feel a bit of discomfort, but it'll be fine. Not a problem. The word discomfort is a soft word. Don't give these people suggestions and make them feel even worse. And in fact, when my daughters had their vaccinations, I spoke to the nurse first, and I said, "Look, I don't want you to tell them they're going to feel a scratch. I don't want you to tell them that it's going to hurt. I don't want you to tell them they're going to have an achy arm. I don't want you to give them any suggestions at all because they're all negative, right?" I said, "Just have them in. Literally do it without saying anything." I'll tell you, both of them, neither of them cried. Neither of them, I think Holly, one of my daughters, Holly, didn't even realize she'd done it because it was just so quick. It was just done. No problem at all. So suggestion, is something that they could certainly work on. There's no need to tell somebody they're going to feel pain or feel this because they will if you say it.
Chris, how does being a hypnotist impact on your daily life? Do you spend your whole life avoiding negative suggestion?
I'm just very mindful of it because I know if somebody gives me a negative suggestion and I start feeling something, I then just say to myself, right, well, I'm now feeling a bit weird. I know I'm feeling a bit weird. I know it's because my subconscious mind, which is a bit like a 6-year-old child, that's how you have to treat your subconscious mind. It's a bit like a 6-year-old child, thinks it knows everything, makes some really stupid decisions, right? And I just kind of say, I'm feeling a bit crap because I know I've just been given a negative suggestion. I'm just going to let it, it's about understanding it. Because actually, if you're a young person and you don't understand why you're feeling all these feelings, that can be worse. So by understanding it's just the fact that it was a negative suggestion and your subconscious mind has obviously accepted it and it's making you feel like pants at the moment, and you just remind yourself that you're medically safe, there's nothing wrong with you, it's just a feeling, it's a completely natural feeling in your body. And actually, in less than 3 minutes, if you just stop, take a couple of deep breaths, it will be gone. That's how any sort of anxiety works. If you just give yourself a minute and you just focus on something else, take a few deep breaths, in less than 3 minutes, it's going to be gone anyway. So,
You've just made me think of a question
on.
about theme parks. So I like rides. I quite like feeling scared, but what's going on in, I mean, we went to Alton Towers, and there's a ride there called the Smiler, and the music's playing, this kind of ambience is created. I could see with my own eyes that it looked dangerous, but I suppose part of me thought it's safe. What's going on in the mind when you're going on a white knuckle ride?
I think we love being scared, right? But we love being scared in a way that is backed up with this idea that it's completely safe. Because obviously, you're thinking theme park, multi-million pounds, hundreds of safety systems, thousands of people on it a day. So logically, you go, yeah, it's fine. It's going to be fine. But at the same time, your subconscious is going, oh my God, this is horrendous. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And the thing is, with the rides, you get on the rides, and once you're locked in, that's when your subconscious starts going into complete meltdown. And I think we love that feeling, that just absolute terror feeling. It's just, I don't know, it's just, there's all these chemicals going on in your brain, and the adrenaline and the excitement, it's just a total rush. And I think that's what it's all about.
The mind's an incredible thing, isn't it? It really is. It really is. Chris, just before we finish, it's been great chatting to you. Just tell us about this event, this social trance that you did. It sounds fascinating.
God, it was probably the most crazy time ever. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, literally, so I was on Twitter. I've been on Twitter for probably 10, 11 years now. And back then when we did it, Twitter was fairly new. I mean, it was so new, we didn't actually have hashtags. We had hashtags, but hashtags was something we did as a community. And we did it just because if you use the hashtag, you could then go into the search bar and find everybody using the same words. And of course, a load of people had said to me, do you think you could do something that we can all like have a go at? Do you think you can do like an online thing? And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, I suppose we could. And then I thought, well, how are we going to do it? So, because back then there's no Facebook Live, there's no YouTube Live, there's nothing. If you want to stream on the internet, you had to pay for it. So I managed to find a company who sort of said, yeah, we can stream it. We'll give you an access point. You can upload the audio, live using this little bit of software, and everybody can join. And I thought, yeah, okay, we'll do that. Maybe 100 people, and I'm thinking 100 people at X amount because they charge per stream, right? So I had to pay for each individual person who was on there. And of course, what happened was I set up this registration page, and I coded the actual the page myself. And the idea was that in order to take part, you'd register using either your Facebook or your Twitter account.
Right.
And of course, when you register with your Facebook account, it would then automatically add it onto your wall that you had just registered. So all your friends then knew that you'd just done it.
Okay.
And of course, this just created this snowball, and it just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I thought, well, okay, it's getting quite big. I'll stick a little press release out just so that everybody knows what it's all about. The Daily Telegraph picked that up, and then it just went nuts. I mean, it just went crazy. I mean, people were registering left, right, and centre. Sky News picked it up. I remember sitting watching the papers review. I had the whole of page 3 of the Independent literally the whole page was about me. And yeah, it just went absolutely crazy. I think I was front page of Google News, which was quite an experience for myself. Started trending on Twitter, and yeah, and then this was the interesting thing. I then started getting threats on email from people who were saying that if I went ahead and did it, the Americans were going to sue me. If somebody listened to it and had an accident, I'm going to get sued. I then had an American Christian organization contact me, and they said, we're very concerned about this being done on the internet, and we wanted to understand whether we needed to get all our members to not be on the internet for that hour, just in case they were affected by it. And I had to explain that no, just being on the internet wouldn't affect you. But it just shows what the world was like then. It was a big, people didn't really understand it. We then started. I mean, as I said, it then hit Sky News again. The registration was going through the roof. The servers were crashing. The whole site went down at one point. So there was a massive sort of frantic operation to try and get it back up. And then I ended up making a decision, which was that the threats were just getting to the point where I hadn't got any proper legal advice on this, and thought, what am I going to do? So I ended up quickly pre-recording the live bit as a download. So I did the live event, I explained all about it, and then I did the final bit as a download, because if somebody downloads it, then they then take responsibility for listening to it. But yeah, it was a heck of a ride. I think the actual day of the event, I think I did over 200 interviews. I think I was even front page on a newspaper in South Africa. Hypnotists trying to hypnotize people on Facebook and Twitter. It just had all these, and also it's January. There's no news in January. I mean, not normally. It was, if you're going to release a pop song, you'd always do it in January because there was less competition.
Well, it's something to tell the grandkids, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got all the the newspaper cuttings and stuff. It was very interesting.
Fantastic. And how's the future looking for you and your work? Do you have a clinic or something somewhere people come and see you? Are you back
Yes.
running?
Yeah, so I operate out of Banbury, and I also operate at Harley Street, but I haven't been into London for probably a year now. What's actually happened is I actually joined a platform called hypnotherapy.com, which is actually really good. They verify everybody. They check your training, they check your credentials. They don't just let anybody on there, which is great. And I do all my bookings at the moment through that, pretty much all through Zoom. So yeah, it's kind of opened up a brand new way of kind of doing things. Whereas before it was kind of like Zoom was like the backup. If you really couldn't see somebody in the office, you'd do it on Zoom. But now everybody's sort of set up, and everybody just is quite happy to do Zoom. So
yeah.
But I will get back in the office, definitely.
Yeah. And you're on Twitter, and you've got a website. Just self-promote a little bit there, Chris.
Yeah, my Twitter is Hypnotist Chris. If you want to shout out for anything, you got any events, let me know. I'll always retweet them. And yeah, my website is chrishughes.hypnotherapy.co.uk. And yeah, just get in touch if you want any help with anything. I'm always happy to listen.
Fantastic.
And see what we can do.
Great. Well, it's been an education for me. It's been really lovely talking to you, Chris. It's I'm sure it'll arouse a lot of questions in other people's minds as well.
Yeah.
But, for now, just thank you so much for coming on the Godcast, and we send out love from Birmingham. If you're ever up these parts,
yeah,
go by and
I'll call in. Definitely.
All right, brother. Thanks for your time.
Take care.
God
Cheers,
bless.
bye.
Bye.